Hey, just before we jump into the episode, I'm wondering if you're using Medic at your company, if you're an AE or a sales leader listening to this. I've implemented Medic 3 times when I was a VP of sales, and now I help sales organizations implement Medic with their teams. I've got a free deal scorecard that you can basically evaluate and score your opportunities using the MedPick framework to see where you've got gaps, where there's risk in your forecast, so that you can identify them and do something about it and mitigate that risk. So if you want to get a copy of that, head over to the website. There'll also be a link in the show notes. Go to the revenueenabler.com. You'll see there's a drop down called the Learning Hub. There's a button called the Downloads. When you go there, you're looking for the MedPick deal score sheet. You can get instant access to that, as well as other things like the What We've Heard slide, my ghosting playbook, cold call scorecard, story builder, AI sales assistant, and so much more. So head over to the revenueenabler.com, go check out the Learning Hub and our downloads, and let's jump into the episode now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hit Your Numbers podcast, and today I'm joined by Jess. How's it going?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks for making the time. So today we're going to be talking about cross-functional leadership and managing up, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no worries. This is a topic that I think is important. There's just not that much enablement out there on the internet or inside of organizations on this. And, working closely with your colleagues and also setting expectations across the org is obviously really, really important. So hopefully today there's some good stuff that we can get into. I know that in your role, it's kind of expanded a little bit from sales and managing a few different parts of the, I would say, go-to-market product, marketing strategy, that kind of stuff. Just before we jump into like how you manage KPIs and things like that across those different groups, maybe just give the listeners just a quick overview of, who you are, your role, a little bit about your journey, just for context, and then we can maybe jump into that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a VP of sales here at MVF. I started at MVF 7 years ago to this month, which it's been a wild ride. It was one of my first sales roles, so I came in very much at entry level as a business development manager, never having worked in sales before. And over the last 7 years, have spent my time as an individual contributor. I then worked as a sales manager, so directly managing the reps who are contributing to new business targets. And now I'm leading one of our newest product suites. So as part of that, I not only lead the revenue driving activities, but I'm also responsible for more of the commercial strategy. So sort of our go-to-market plan, and also working with a lot of different functions internally to actually create, develop, and take these new products out to market.
Love it. So you're probably super busy. So thanks for carving out 60 minutes to chat today. So kind of managing all of those different moving parts, they obviously have different leading and lagging indicators and things like that. But obviously we're working on a common goal, right? So from your perspective, how do you align those teams with different KPIs and different priorities and schedules and things like that, especially if they're like maybe not all inside of one office? Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be completely transparent, something that we haven't always got right. And I think one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed about this new role is really just trying different activities and learning from the mistakes that we've made along the way. So hopefully, your listeners and viewers can benefit from learning from some of our mistakes, and not maybe have to go and make them themselves. But one of the things that's been most effective for us is really taking it back to understand the why. So I don't know if you know Simon Sinek, he's got his why, what, how. That is a crucial methodology that we always think about when we're launching new products at MVF, is not just what are we taking to market and how are we going to take that to market, but really why is MVF deciding to bring this new product to market. I think if you can get all of the functions within the company to really understand that why, it helps us to then almost ladder up our KPIs back into that why. So, of course, your sales team are going to be wanting to drive revenue. That doesn't necessarily always align with maybe the product delivery teams who are wanting to get the product out to market in the most profitable version that they can. really we've got to find an alignment between making sure that we can acquire those new customers for this new opportunity, build up that client feedback, really understand, okay, what is working well, what isn't, and then come to the profitability later down the line. So I find it most valuable when we're launching new products is to get all of the leaders from the different functions to really align on the why, and then understand, okay, how can we make sure all of our KPIs are complementary to achieving that one, as you said, James, aligned goal, even if maybe that means that there needs to be some compromise from each of the functions in the short term so that we can get to where we need to be in the long term.
So good. Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think that's an exercise that most, regardless of like what role you're in, if you're a VP of sales, in your position, or if you're a, brand new SDR, like that why, what, how, the book's great. It's a great little framework. Makes total sense when you kind of hear him do that TED talk that obviously has been super, super viral for so many years now, right? Really inspiring. These are the little tools that aren't SaaS tools. These are the little tools that you can deploy in your business that give you clarity, right? So yeah, really, really important. And I loved your like, hey, everyone's got these different wants and needs and desires, but at the end of the day, like this is our common goal. We need to rally the troops and align to that. And if we can do that in a really good way and create that, like foster that culture of collaboration, then we're in a good spot. I also talk about, and I talk about it a lot at the moment around AI, is like your production line. So like if you think about like, I don't know, a BMW manufacturing plant, it's just like a big conveyor belt, and at one end there's a bunch of car parts, steering wheels, tires, doors, and at the other end there's a 5 Series that you can drive out the showroom, and it's being built on the way. Like there's different teams, different checkpoints, but ultimately their goal is to get a really nice car at the end in a specific color that the customer can drive out with and the business can sell for good money, right? And it's about really like getting the team around a whiteboard and going, here's our production line, this is what we're trying to do, this is where we are today, what do we agree is the most effective way to go from here to here? And then like with AI now, because we've got this benefit, like how do we leverage AI to have like full ownership on AI, maybe AI assist here, so still got a human but AI assisted, and then full human being on this part. Like how do we go and deploy that so that we can align those different departments and it's not done in silos? And I guess you might have seen that in the past where product are doing their thing in the corner, marketing and doing their thing in the corner, sales in the middle, account management's over here, and they're not really having a conversation around that plan, and that's when it usually starts to fall apart. Has that been maybe your experience in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's again one of the biggest learnings that we've had. And actually, one of the ways that we've addressed this is, I don't know if you've come across the business methodology Scaling Up by Vern Harnish.
Doesn't ring a
No,
bell.
it's a really really great book, and essentially what we're looking at our new product suite as internally within MVF is it's a new business, it's a scrappy startup. We are trying to create something completely new that the business has never done before. That means that we need, exactly as you said, all of the parts of that production line to come together and actually ensure that we are driving towards that one common goal. And I think one of the biggest things that I've taken from that scaling up methodology is daily huddles and just operating rhythm. So, what we do is every single day we catch up in the morning for 15 minutes to identify what's up, the numbers, and where are you stuck. And that gives the leaders from each of those functions the opportunity to bring to the group anything that is stopping us from making progress towards that one goal. And actually, I'll be honest, when one of my colleagues recommended it, I wasn't the biggest fan. To me, someone who's in a revenue driving role, they don't want to be in a 15-minute huddle every single day. You're not making money during those 15 minutes. But actually, it really, when done properly, it has yielded really positive impact, because what it means is outside of that 15 minutes, we're not spending any time during the day solving problems or trying to reach for alignment, because we start every day making sure that everybody is still on the same page. We know where we are in terms of our numbers, and we know where we are in terms of where we're stuck, so we can just run at that fast. And it means that we're never kind of having to find time within the day to sort out an emergency, because we've already highlighted that that's something that's likely to come up.
Spot on. Yeah, I wrote down the daily huddle, and next to it, I wrote down devs. Like devs for a very, very, very long time have been doing daily huddles. What did
Mhm.
you do yesterday? What problems did you run into? Were you able to find a resolution? If not, can we all pay attention? Because some of us might have solved that problem in the past. And if
Mhm.
you think like product team, like devs are usually pretty good at getting their product out on time. Different departments like HR are usually pretty good at doing things on time because they do these little huddles. But the problem is Salesforce publishes every year a state of sales, and then there is that kind of chart of sellers only spend 30% of their time selling. So we try and cut even more of this stuff. And look, there's a lot that we can cut, but I do think there's good value in what you're talking about there. Is just like if executed well, it can be 15 minutes. It
Mhm.
reinforces what we're focused on across lots of different groups on that common goal. And it gives us an opportunity to tackle stuff head on and squash it quickly rather than waiting for that, conversation we have once a month or once every 2 weeks. We can kill it today versus waiting 2 weeks and then going, we've just lost 14 days.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
can
And
be a big difference with like a competitor getting a product out before you, right? Or, getting the right positioning out before you and then, they get that head start.
yeah, absolutely. And look, it's not something that I would advise every single sales team out there to put into operation. I think if you've got a consistent product that you are already confident in terms of taking it to market, and maybe there is less cross-functional kind of collaboration as a result because you are taking something which is very mature out to your customers, then perhaps it's not needed. But for examples where you're creating a new product suite and there is a huge amount of cross-functional collaboration required, I think it's super valuable. Or for anyone out there who is, starting up a new business or going through the process of scaling up a business, then I would definitely recommend that book because some of the tips in there have been, yeah, game changing for us in keeping that cross-functional alignment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, like in your experience, then, because again, some of the listeners might be going through this right now, where you've got one department, let's say product, who's got a priority that's maybe a direct conflict of the sales organizations, like I don't know, hitting their revenue goal. What's your approach to finding like a win-win solution? Like, do you have like a stepped process that you follow to get to that outcome?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a few different ways that I would approach it. It depends on what that conflict is. We've had conflict in the past where product creation and product delivery has actually been counterintuitive in terms of their KPIs versus what the sales team had been asked to do. And actually, in those situations, we brought that feedback back from both of the teams who felt like they were running in two different directions, brought it back to leadership and said, at the moment, what you've asked each team to achieve is not complementary. And actually, we're not going to be able to drive towards that common goal as a result. Broken that down, taken it back to the why. Why are we trying to do what we are currently doing, and what and how is going to allow us to feed back into that? And as a result, in the past, we've actually completely changed the sales approach as a result. We've had commission structures that have been incentivizing the wrong behavior that's not going to allow product to really do what they're trying to achieve, which we at the time identified as the bigger action that was going to drive us towards that why. And as a result, we've gone back to the sales function and we've said, okay, we're the ones who need to make tweaks here, but management are asking you to do these activities that are not complementary to the overall goal by commissioning you and incentivizing you to do them. So actually we took it back, we reworked it, we made sure that everybody really understood why are we making these changes and how is it going to benefit everyone overall. And then by bringing that back in line with what the other team were trying to achieve, it meant that suddenly we were all running in the same direction, which was far, far more successful for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And this is one of the things I love about the podcast is like when you say things like that, it's just so obvious. But again, like sales is usually a department that is critical because we drive revenue, but so immature in terms of our sophistication and the way we do things. Like you're talking about there, like if I need to have tough conversations, I got to have them quick, but I also need to bring the why. Otherwise, people just won't get on board with it. It's like if you need to change a comp plan or change territories or change quotas or whatever it might be, like if you bring like a really powerful why, make it really clear why you're doing it and then inspire people with the new plan, people will grab it with two hands and run with it. If you just come in and swipe things away, which is what unfortunately most sales leaders do, that's when they start to get conflict. People start to get their back up, and then they start looking at LinkedIn jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got a big problem, right? So I guess, okay, my next question. So you're going through the motions of running through to get to this common goal. And I'm a big fan of like keeping my ear close to the ground, listening to what the market's saying, what customers are saying, because especially in a scrappy startup like that one you're building inside of your mature business, things change very quickly, right? What have you done in the past when you've noticed that and you've had to then communicate change to all of these different departments and say, hey, we might need to pivot, we need to course correct because we're hearing this in the market? One, how important is that for starters? And two, what do you do when you hear the need for change and communicate that across the teams?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, to answer your first question, nothing is more important than that, in my opinion. I mean, listening to your clients and understanding what the market is asking for is the most important thing for a business to do rather than just continuing down the path that you set a strategy 5 years ago because you're all committed to it. Those who don't adapt are going to be the ones who fall by the wayside. It is, the companies, as you mentioned, the competitors who are able to move the fastest and respond to those market trends who are going to be the ones who are going to be successful long term. And yeah, I mean, we see this all the time at the moment. So to give a little bit of context as to the products that I'm currently creating and running forwards with my company. So we are a media and marketing platform. We work with customers right at the bottom of the funnel, generating leads for their sales teams. And then we are now opening up towards the mid and upper funnel. So the products that I'm bringing are all about how can we introduce those brands to the MBF proprietary audience earlier in their buying journey. And some of the key activities that we originally wanted to go out to market with were things like industry verticalized newsletters, display advertising, and pieces of sponsored content, which all have been successful. But actually, where we are really, really seeing the demand and where the appetite is coming through is our brands have great coverage across AI overviews and LLMs. And I think all of your listeners will appreciate that this is a hot topic in any industry that you're in, is how can I get my brand to be mentioned in one of those AI overviews? So it's something that we actually almost fell across by chance in terms of this new product that we've created. Is what we saw is the more pieces of sponsored content we were helping our brands to publish across our websites, the more citations and appearances that we were getting together, because we are a third party trusted voice in the industry who's promoting them from an external perspective. And that's what the AI overviews are craving. So we originally had an approach where we wanted to focus on, let's say, newsletters, where we knew that there was a big opportunity. But actually, time and time again, clients were coming to us saying, this is great, but I hear or I've seen one of your brand's tech.co popping up in the AI overviews. We'd love to have a piece of that pie, and how can we get involved with you then? So, I mean, we had two options there. One is we can concentrate on the product that we thought would be the one best to go to market with and sort of squash the questions and the appetite that we didn't yet have a solution for. But what we actually did was we started collecting that feedback, and I collated it. And every time somebody asked me this question, I was taking down the context and the notes to understand, okay, why are they asking about this? Why are they asking MVF about this specifically? And what is it? What is the value that they see that we could drive for them? So I started collecting that in terms of client feedback. I also started looking into the market to understand what other providers were speaking about in terms of this, went to a couple of conferences to understand and listen to what other experts in the market were sharing on this topic. And unsurprisingly, it's a hot topic globally. So I collated all of this, and as soon as I got back from my last conference where this really, really got highlighted, I actually asked for a meeting with our C-suite and the exec board to present all of these findings, because I wanted to put in front of them this opportunity that I felt we could run fast at, but we would need to pivot and actually take a risk in order to go after it. And I know one of the other topics that we're going to be speaking about today is managing up. that's one of the examples of where I felt that was a perfect opportunity to really bring it to the people above me, to give them that transparency and the proactive communication of the opportunities that could be available to us, but we would need to act in order to take advantage of them.
That's so good. That's going to make a great clip. How important do you think curiosity is, Jess, in what you just said there? Because we can set the plan. A lot of people do a set and forget. Here's a plan. We'll crack on, stay in our lane, which I'm a big fan of. Um, but I think a lot of people lack curiosity. I read a book a long time ago. I think it's called the Curiosity Manifesto or something like that. And the chap's a very kind of intelligent man. He did a lot of research on it, and he found that something like the average 6-year-old asks 126 questions a day. What's this? What's that? Why are we doing this? Etc. And then the average adult over 30 in the workplace asks at best 6. So there's definitely research out there, I think, that shows that we just get less curious the older we get in some cases.
Mhm.
Um, that took curiosity, right? For you to like keep your ear close to the ground, keep looking around. And then when you see something, go, I wonder why that is like that. I wonder why they do it like that. Why do we do it like this? Right. And then it forces you to go and explore. And then you can come back and bring rich insights. Like, was that part of that process, do you think?
Absolutely. I could honestly do an entire hour's podcast with you on the importance of curiosity in sales, not just in sales, but in business.
Yeah.
It is the one competency that every time I interview somebody for a sales position, it's the one that I'm really, really looking for. So, advice to any aspiring salespeople who are listening is, if you're in an interview, the ability to show that you're curious, ask those questions, always come to an interview with some really smart questions about the company or about the individual who's interviewing you, that is going to go such a long way. And it's one of the reasons actually that I've been at MBF for so long, is that the entire business promotes curiosity. We've actually just gone through a process of reworking our company values. We've been through quite a few changes. We've got a new CEO who's come in, and he wanted to reset the company values. And actually, the one that came out of our leadership offsite that everybody in the business knew had to be one of our values was curiosity, because it is the way that we live our mantras. You need to be asking, why are we doing this? You need to be asking, why are we not doing this? If you stop questioning, you stop developing, and you stop creating new opportunities. So yeah, in conclusion, curiosity is important.
Let's do it. Let's get you back because I love that topic as well. And I just think there's not enough of it going around. And you're right. It has to be from the top down, has to be core in the business, but has to be reinforced as well. And the leader, the manager, the frontline manager, whoever it is that's interacting with the rep or the etc. Um, they have to be curious themselves and show curiosity if they want it to ripple all the way through. So it's not just a leadership offsite. Let's get some wall designers to come in and slap our values up on the wall, right? And then we'll just get along with our typical business. Like, it has to become part of the DNA, part of every conversation for it to be a success. Yeah, really important. One of the things I wrote down, I'm a bit of a techie because, startup VP of sales, you kind of have to be because there's no enablement team. And one of the things I'm, really kind of nerding out on, have been for a year now, is AI. I've been vibe coding in between coaching calls and things like that. And always been big on workflows and stuff like that. But one of the things we should be doing in go to market a lot more is building workflows that takes all of our customer conversations that are recorded and then pushing through new learnings. What patterns are we seeing? Not just like in sales conversations, are our sales reps asking the right questions, but like customer voice. Like, what is our customers now talking about? And why and how is that different to 3 months ago? Right? Like, I've been into startups before where they show me their ICP document. I say, hey, when was the last time this was edited? And they're like, 3.5 years ago, and we started the business. I'm like, has your business changed? Has the market changed? Has your buyer changed, etc.? Yeah, that needs to be updated. Otherwise, like, there's probably part of your problem of why your reps aren't performing. Is because they're going out to market with the wrong messaging. They're saying things that we used to say before COVID or during COVID, and that was a long time ago now. So things have to adapt, and you can literally just build a simple workflow that just sends data to a spreadsheet or whatever that says, like, this is what's hot in the VP of HR's world right now in manufacturing companies, and this is what's hot in the head of legal team in these kind of organizations, and that can help you know when to pivot, when to double down, right? Like, I'm a big data guy. Like, if we go and start making decisions to change stuff and data's not driving, we could have been just round the corner from like huge success. But because we've not got the win today, we've gone, do you know what? My gut tells me to change it. I'll change it. But if data's showing us that we should probably stay on the path, let's at least give that a shot, right? And that can help us understand when we should guide things. And then back to your point, that's when we can then go back to our teams with the why. This is why we're changing, because we're seeing this in the data. And if you've got all of the teams aligned on that common goal, they're like, cool, don't really care like what way we go. I'm focused on that goal. So if you say we need to go this way instead of that way, that's cool. Like, I'm good for that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about managing up, because you spoke about that earlier. And I think it's a big buzzword in a lot of organizations. A lot of people talk about it and they don't really have much kind of clarity around that. For you specifically, what does it mean? And why is it so important for a sales leader in a business like yours? So we've built the leading skill optimization platform with 400 plus sales lessons, 12 courses from prospecting all the way through to late stage deal negotiation and more, one-to-one sales coaching and AI sales assistance. And I want to give you 7 days free access to the platform. The reason I want to do this is because nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. And after training and coaching hundreds of sales reps and teams in the last 2 years, most haven't mastered critical selling skills, and it's preventing them from being promoted, earning great money, and building a great career in B2B sales. So go to the revenueenabler.com, grab a free trial, and join hundreds of salespeople that are closing their skill gaps and mastering sales. There's a link in the video description. I'm looking forward to getting you set up. Give me a shout with any questions.
Yeah, it absolutely is a buzzword, I think, and to really simplify it to its simplest means, I think it's transparent communication and building trust with the people who are above you, and I think that is so important in any position, in any business, but specifically important within the sales function, because of course those who are reporting to boards, who are reporting to investors, they will be reporting numbers, and those numbers need to be accurate, and they need to believe that the individuals who are giving those numbers to them actually hold the authority to be able to do so. So I think it couldn't be more important than to create that transparent relationship with those above you. You know, when things aren't going well, there's no point trying to hide it under the carpet, because that carpet's going to get ripped up in front of you at some point, and it's going to be a whole lot worse than if you just went to your leaders at the time, were transparent about not hitting your revenue lines, owning that, and then owning the conversation as to how you can remedy that. And I think I've had examples of this in the past where there have been expectations that have been set on me by C-suite members who are expecting certain revenue to be delivered in certain revenue lines, and actually, you know, sometimes it's just not possible, and it's just not what's going to be achievable based on the resource that you have. And sometimes that can create difficult conversations, but again, those are conversations that need to be had. And actually, James, when you mentioned sort of your data driven approach, that's music to my ears, because that's exactly the approach that I like to take to it as well. Is, you know, there's no feelings involved when it comes to revenue forecasting. Nobody is getting personally squashed when a tough conversation comes up. But if you are behind your forecast, you need to have a clear plan of action as to how you can remedy that. And if it's because you need more resource, you need to know that when you go and ask for that resource and you make your business case that that is what is going to be required to hit those numbers, that you've already built a transparent and trusting relationship with those people that you're going to make that request, so that they genuinely believe that that is what's going to be valid, and that is what's going to need to happen for you to actually generate your revenue line. So I think it's managing up is essentially a proactive communication approach to those who are reporting on your revenue line, so that they have the trust that the information you're giving them is the information that the entire business needs to be able to make the right decisions.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. I wrote down a couple of things there that came to mind when you were talking, but it sounds like a little bit cheesy. But when I became a VP of sales, one of the books I read, which actually was genuinely really, really helpful, a lot of them are fluff, but I don't know if you've read Mark Roberge's sales acceleration formula.
Acceleration formula, yeah.
Loved that thing. Like, I had to order a couple of copies. It just gets beaten up in the bag. But
Hmm.
love like what he says around like in God we trust, for everyone else bring data.
Hmm.
Like, it's so true. Like, if you want to come and have an argument like in a professional way, like bring data to back it up. If not, like, I haven't got time, and executives don't have time or attention spans to have that conversation. They want to get into the data. So so important. I was really lucky when I was in one of the startups. The board had just brought on a new NED, super experienced man, and I was having one-to-one sessions with him like every week, every 2 weeks, and in most cases it was just me like laying out my plan, and he was a soundboard, and he would just directly tell me if I was about to shit the bed or not. So he was a great, voice, and he gave me this bit of advice once, and it was like, bad news takes time to travel uphill. You need to be honest, and be honest fast. And I just got really good at going into exec meetings and saying, here's like open pipeline, here's out quarter pipeline, here's our forecast. Like, we were in a situation once where there was like potential layoffs. I was like, I want to be super transparent. Like, I'm going to give you it as raw as it comes. If we don't fix this, this is going to get even worse. And I want you guys to know that, because I can't solve this problem alone. We have these problems, and we need to rally the troops. We need to get behind this together if we want to solve this problem. Where before I would have like maybe felt uncomfortable doing that because maybe my job's on the line. But the quicker I can give the important people the data, the information, the quicker we can do something about it. And the way that I used to package that up from a managing up perspective, to your point, is he told me about this get well plan. It's like, if you're not feeling very well, grab a pen and paper, and you're like, right, I need to start taking my multivits, I need to drink more water, probably get some good sleep. That's my plan to get well. He said, you need to do the same from a business perspective. Identify a problem, communicate it fast, be honest, and then bring your get well plan. What is your plan to turn things around fast? And that's where you can have confidence you're not going to get kicked out, because you've thought long and hard about a plan, but you've communicated the problem, so they've got that heads up early.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, no, I love that. And just to kind of echo one of your points there, is that feedback loop, I think, is so important, not just in sales, but again, in any position. Is, I think sometimes people can get in the trap of when messages come from above down, just being a yes man and just saying, my boss or my exec has told me to do X, Y, and Z, I must do it, knowing full well, based on, we as salespeople are on the ground. We know what clients want. We know how clients are going to react. If an exec brings you a new initiative and it's going to go down like a lead balloon with clients, it's not going to increase revenue and it's not going to improve any relationships, don't just take that to market regardless. Go back to your exec and have a conversation. And again, it goes back to that trust and transparency, is as long as you're keeping the communication lines open and you do so in a constructive way. Again, if you can bring data to support the argument, then fantastic. But I think it's sometimes trust can be built by having someone who will push back, because then that when somebody does accept something from you and will run forwards with it, that they genuinely know it's the right thing to do as well. So the exec can be more confident that you're going to get an outcome out of it too.
Yeah, spot on. And like, we might laugh about this. I laugh about it with most people around, like, a lot of the VCs are financial people. They've never spent a day in sales, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they build these great spreadsheet businesses that anyone can build. I can build $1 billion company on a spreadsheet pretty quick. Making it actually happen is very different, very different. So how do you approach a situation where you've got an exec, you've got a VC, you've got somebody on the boards that's telling you to do something in a different timeline than what is actually realistic? How do you communicate to them and help them like manage the gap between, they want it tomorrow, you're like, this is more like 16 weeks out? How do you deal with that situation, especially if it's someone very senior?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think I feel a bit like a parrot, but it goes back to the why. Why do you need it today? Understanding the urgency from their side is always going to be crucial. You know, there might be a very specific reason, maybe an investor's asking, or, you know, something outside of my visibility. So the more context I can have on a request, the more it allows me to understand, okay, why do I need to complete this, and what do I have available within my toolbox to make it happen within perhaps a shorter period of time? I'll then go back to them and say, okay, I've understood this is what you need to achieve. This is realistically based on the data. You know, if it's something to do with creating pipeline, we can bring them back pipeline data from the existing CRM. If it's something to do with a go to market approach, we've got data as to how long that's taken previously. Go to them and present best case scenario right now with what we have available, this is what it would take. And then present them, as you say, that get well plan of these are the other opportunities. You know, there's always a way that you can speed something up, but if it requires dev work, that means taking that dev team off of another project. So doing your scenario A of if we continue as is, it's going to take 16 weeks. If you're able to reallocate me 50% of the dev time that's already on, you know, project X, we can reduce that by half and then give them the options to essentially say, what would you like us to move forwards with? But you have to know that there's going to be a give and take in order for us to get
Just so many great parts of this podcast. That was fantastic. That'll make a fantastic clip. You're just doing you're almost like you're selling, right? You're doing discovery. Hey, why do you need this? What's the impact if we don't do it? What's the negatives, right? Okay,
there.
here's my plan. This is my recommendation. If I'm selling, like, hey, based on discovery, this is what I recommend. This is how we should progress. We've got option A, which is best. Option B is maybe a little bit slower, but those are both your options. Which one do you want to pick? Give people the options, and then they can make a decision, right?
Yeah,
But first,
absolutely.
don't get your back up. A lot of people just get their back up and get heated, and that's when they start to burn relationships and don't get the outcomes. Like, if you're listening, listen to Jess. Like, hey, no worries. Let's have that conversation. Curious, like, why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Cross functional leadership, managing up, it is all selling. Half of what you do internally within a business is selling. Everybody's only got a finite number of hours. You've got to pitch and you've got to win those hours in order to get you closer to achieving your goal. And I think, yeah, we probably do it by accident now, but just you highlighting it there makes me think, you know, I probably do go through that spin methodology or whatever the methodology is that you're using when I'm speaking with internal executives, just because you get their pain point, you get the implication and the need payoff of if they don't actually address this, what's going to happen. But do you know what? I've never thought of it specifically in that way, but it's obviously just so ingrained in me now.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the little tools. Like I said, that's why we should teach them, because if you and
Mm.
you reinforce them, they become boiled in forever. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day who runs I don't know if he listens, but he runs a marketing agency. And he was like, I was on your webinar, I listened to your podcast, and you talk about this PRI framework that I've developed, problem, root, cause, impact. And I can go into any context now, selling cybersecurity, HR, tech, whatever. And I just have this flow. What's your problem? What's causing it to exist? What's the impact of it? It's a really nice way for me to quickly like diagnose a situation, a deal. And you have these little tools in your head because you've reinforced them so much that they just, so when you're in those potential heated conversations, right? And that's why, like, I'm a big fan of things like breath work before you go into like a really intense conversation. Like, get yourself ready to go and potentially have that conversation. These are all the little tools that can help. And, I guess to reinforce what you're doing there, because you are selling, sales leaders say to me, like, I might speak to a CRO. They've got 2, 3 levels of the, frontline manager, second lines, and like, oh, I don't do much selling anymore. And I'm like, you are the biggest salesperson in go to market. The CEO is the biggest salesperson in the company. They've got to sell their
Mhm.
people, they got to sell the investors, they got to sell the market, they got to sell the customers, they got to sell, all of these different people. Like, you're always selling. So like cross functional, like you said, managing up is around being curious, doing discovery, coming with a plan, communicating that plan, often and clearly, and then just getting consensus, and then just moving forward, executing, coming back, rerunning that cycle.
Mhm.
A lot of
Yeah.
sales leaders should get that, because what got them promoted in most cases to being a leader was being a good seller,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
World class. If there's one thing that you would leave, the listeners with, because you've been there, what, 7 years, and you've gone from BDM to VP, and also now, owning cross functionally. That's pretty impressive. Like, is there anything you would give the listeners, like maybe a tip? Like, is it cross functional? Is it managing up? Is it something else that you'd give them that's like, hey, this has really helped you, accelerate that journey?
Yeah, I would probably bring it back to that curiosity point and just re-emphasize that what has, I believe, got me to the position that I'm in today is always trying to understand the why, whether that's the internal why, whether it's the why with your clients, whether it's the, why are we doing any of this, is that will open up the topics that you need in order to actually get you to the outcome that you're looking for. So whether it's bringing on the new clients, whether it's being able to win that internal resource that you need to drive your opportunities forward versus another department, versus another salesperson, versus whoever it is, I think asking those questions, building that trust, being transparent, and always making sure that you're providing the context. It's something that I say to a lot of my new starters when they come in and they're starting to ask for discounts in order to get a deal across the line, or they're trying to win that piece of internal resource that they need in order to get their new client live, is if you just go and make that request, the probability of somebody dropping what they're already doing to help you is going to be quite low. But if you can bring the context, you can say, I need X, Y, and Z because this client is really keen, but they've got to sign off their budget by this date. Otherwise, it's a use it or lose it situation. That's what's going to allow people to actually get behind the project with you. And everyone then knows the why, and you're all kind of striving in the same direction. So in summary, I'd say my piece of advice would be always stay curious, context is key, and remember the why.
So good. And genuine curiosity as well. Like, be
Mm-hmm.
genuine, not like this fake. I can tell when I'm interviewing reps, I'm like, dude, like, I know I put on the job description, I'm looking for curious people. Like, you're going to have to put a little bit more on that than, like, challenge me. Why do you do it that way? Like, one of the lessons
Mm-hmm.
I learned when I joined as a VP of sales once was I just, I wanted to bring in my playbook that worked really well at my last business, but I should have got curious first. Like, why does this business do things this way? Like, why is
Mm-hmm.
it currently structured this way? Could be because it's broken, it needs fixing. But first, like, be genuinely curious. Why do we run the sales process like this for enterprise versus mid-market? Who built this? What data was used? How often has this been looked at? That kind of stuff. And they go, it's not been looked at for a long time. And cool. Then I can start to make some changes, do a little bit more digging, make some more changes. But yeah, again, most people will do what I did because there isn't that much enablement on this. Is they land a new head of sales role, they come in and they just start buying tools and ripping out things, and that stuff could have been there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So just got to be genuinely curious. Like, why is that happening? Why do we do it that way? Why do they do it that way? Like, be hungry to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This was fantastic. I'm definitely going to take you up on bringing you back and talk about culture. We'll give you a couple of weeks to crack on with all the projects, but yeah, it'd be good to get you back and talk about curiosity and how you can kind of foster that in the team. Awesome. All right, Jess. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll keep the listeners posted, and yeah, look forward to seeing you on another episode.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Cheers,
Awesome. Have a
Jess.
good one. See you later.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks for listening to this episode. I've got something else I want to give you before we wrap up here. So we've built the leading skill optimization platform with 400 plus sales lessons, 12 courses from prospecting all the way through to late stage deal negotiation and more, one-to-one sales coaching and AI sales assistance. And I want to give you 7 days free access to the platform. The reason I want to do this is because nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. And after training and coaching hundreds of sales reps and teams in the last 2 years, most haven't mastered critical selling skills. And it's preventing them from being promoted, earning great money, and building a great career in B2B sales. So go to the revenueenabler.com, grab a free trial, and join hundreds of salespeople that are closing their skill gaps and mastering sales. There's a link in the video description. I'm looking forward to getting you set up. Give me a shout with any questions.